Civil War. So, all the events that lead up to this point we've talked about for the first, second, and third market period. So let's try this again and talk about the Civil War. Here we go. So, what are the causes? Everything leading up to this point basically is the cause. So from the War of 1812, after that we get, some unity. Everybody go America, America, right? But then we have 1820, the Compromise 1820. We start seeing this issue of slavery tear the country apart, and then we have the Compromise 1850, which one of the major things in it that is real divisive is the Fugitive Slave Act, where people can be held accountable for harboring slaves in the North. And not only that, is a lot of free blacks are, hey, you resemble this poster that I see. It says a 6-foot tall black man. Well, there's a lot of them in the world. So they would turn in free blacks and send them, and they'd be brought down south. And then, of course, you have John Brown, and then the election of 1860 when Abraham Lincoln becomes president. All right, so we still have this big divide in the country. This war has many, many names for it. Even in the South today, the war is called, the war is called, the War of Northern Aggression, or, it's Mr. Lincoln's War, the Southern Rebellion would be called up here, Second American Revolution, all different names for this war. Obviously, we just call it here in New Jersey the Civil War. Most people call it the American Civil War in the world. More casualties in this war than most of these wars combined. Over 500,000 Americans, because remember, even though they were Confederates, they were considered American. The Battle of Antietam, the bloodiest day on American soil. Battle of Gettysburg is the bloodiest war ever, I believe, in American history. All right, so a lot of people are killed and injured, lives ruined during this event. War of firsts. All right, I'm not going to read through each one of these. All right, however, there are a lot of a lot of new technologies, machine guns, repeating rifle, right? So a lot of the Southerners had just a musket left over from the American Revolution or the War of 1812, so that's all they had. It was passed down to the fathers and the grandfathers. Right? Northerners, they were pumping out, they had a lot more factories, used that interchangeable parts. All right, this part's broken. All right, you can use this one now. I didn't have to come up with a whole new gun. Submarine makes its first appearance. The draft. All right, military has its first draft. African Americans in combat. All right, if you ever watch the movie Glory, you have the 54th from Massachusetts. It's very prominent. They attack Fort. Can't remember what the name of the fort was, but it's down in South Carolina, and they take massive amounts of casualty. First income tax, how are you going to pay for the war? All right, the telegraph is huge, and it's very important. Get information rather quickly from the battlefield to Abraham Lincoln and the generals. Next, quick little map review. Everything in white here are the free northern Union states. Down south here are the Confederate states. Right? These border states would be very, very important. We didn't want them to become Confederate states, so there were plenty of measures in place to make sure that that would not happen. Both sides prepared for war. The North has some major advantages. Twice as many railroads in the South, get troops and materials from one place to the other. Twice as many factories than the North. In the North. All right, so you can mass produce things a lot more quickly than the South. More money. They already have a monetary system in place up there. The economy is balanced between industry and farming, so you can feed, clothe, and give weapons to the soldiers. 2/3 of the population is in the Union. All right, so you think about New York, Philadelphia, Boston, all those heavily populated states and cities that we have today, same. All right, down in the South, the most populous city is probably Atlanta, and that dwarfs, you know, the other cities. They had a functioning government. So the South had no government. They had to throw it together real quick. Right? They had no army. They had to put it together, and no functioning navy. Southern advantages. Most of the military colleges and the officers that sided with the Confederacy are located in the South. So they had the military minds. They didn't need to initiate the military action. They only needed a defense. All right, they need to set that up. Just pack it in. They had stronger morale. They had something worth fighting for, their way of life. Right? That's when somebody has something to fight for, you give it a little bit more oomph. You know, what are we doing this for? Right? The North was a little bit conflicted. A lot of people believe, heavily in slavery and keeping the Union together. Some people are like, why are we fighting? I'm going to go through that real quick. Strategies. All right. The North and the South had totally different strategies. The Union wanted a blockade of the seceded states. All right. So that was called the Anaconda Plan. Constrict their movements. All right. Prevent them from importing and exporting. General Winfield Scott, who was in charge in the beginning of the war, develops this plan. He proposed control the Mississippi, set up a blockade, control the waters. All right, pressure for a quick victory and goal became to seize the Confederate capital, which would be Richmond. Confederate, all we asked is to be left alone, leave us alone. Planned a defensive war. Right, they knew the land, they knew the area. War of attrition, inflict losses on the enemy to wear them down. All right, they learned that from the American Revolution. In Great Britain, people got weary of war. Why are we fighting all the way over there? Who cares? Let those American people have what they want. Leave us out of it. Tired of dying over here. You know, the American Revolution, 8 years or so, the Southerners said, hey, let's just wear them out. Make them not want to fight us anymore. It backfired because the North's resources were so much more superior than the South. Confederate leaders convinced Southern planters to stop the exports to Europe, so they would be forced to be on their side. The problem with this is you have India and Egypt. Europe just said, hey, can you grow us some cotton? You already have silk in India. We don't really need the South, the American South. The first spark of the war was Fort Sunken. All right, so this was a fort in South Carolina that basically had to be reinforced with reinforcements and materials. They didn't want that fort to fall into Southern hands, but by the time the reinforcements arrived, it was too little too late, and the Confederates take the fort rather easily in 36 hours. It's pretty, sounds like a long time, but when you didn't have helicopters and all you had was horses, and you had to pull these little cannons and things, and you had rowboats and things, 36 hours is okay. It's pretty achievable. There were a lot of losses, 3,000 on the Union side, 2,000 on the Confederate side. All right, so there were some losses here in South Carolina. All right, that's it for today on this first lecture. Make sure you fill out your guided notes. All right,